and I'm the Communications Manager with the Olive Group, developers of the MC2 platform, and it's great to have you with us. MC2 is a platform where communities take training, view job opportunities, stay up to date with the latest industry news, and build on personal talent with targeted programs, and communicate with others in their community who face the same challenges and opportunities as you. And the world has changed massively over the last year and completely changed the way we work. Unfortunately, this has caused many people to lose their jobs, but many others are reevaluating their own careers and looking for change that best suits their needs. And the first step to making this change is updating the dreaded CV. For this evening's session, we're going to look at the recruitment process with a focus on CVs and interviewing techniques to help you understand what employers are looking for, and more importantly, help you get noticed when looking for your next job. So it gives me great pleasure to be joined today by Eimhear O'Dalaigh from Excel Recruitment. Having started as a chef, Eimhear worked for over 20 years in the hospitality industry, both in the kitchen, but predominantly in front of house management positions. She's worked in 5-star hotels and multinational chain restaurants, as well as busy Dublin pubs and high-end cafes for the majority of her career. She has been with Excel Recruitment for the last 5 years, where she specializes in training a variety of courses across the healthcare, hospitality, and retail sectors. And it's Eimhear's priority to ensure a continuous supply of high-caliber staff to preempt her clients' needs. Now, before we hear from Eimhear, I'd just like to call on you, our audience, to submit any questions for the short Q&A session that we've got planned for the end. This will give Eimhear the opportunity to answer any questions you may have. You can do this by clicking the Q&A tab at the bottom of your webinar screen, or by simply leaving a comment on the YouTube page that you're watching from. Please be aware that you will be on mute and this live session will be recorded. Okay, I think we're now ready to hear from Eimhear and get some valuable insights into the world of recruitment. Welcome, Eimhear.
Thank you very much, Ben. It's lovely to not quite see all of you, but hopefully be heard by all of you. I'm going to pop up some slides and then I'll go through them slowly. I'm going to talk about CVs. Predominantly, I would be usually speaking to predominantly foreign language students or non-Irish people coming into the Irish market, but I've been made aware by Ben that this is an international thing. So I will try and change some of what I'm talking about to help you if you're creating a CV for any other country. Okay, I'm going to try and do my level best now to. Is it your entire screen or a window? I've forgotten already. See how useless I am.
So try window.
Okay. Perfect. Yes.
There we go.
That's excellent. Okay. So let me just get out of that. Boom. Okay.
Just for the PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, so you've got to think that your CV is essentially the very, very first thing any potential employer is going to see. So you have to think of it as, it's like the trailer for the movie if you were the movie. So we've all had the experience where we go to the cinema and you're going in to see your movie and well, not recently, but generally we go and we sit down and out come the trailers. And I'm sure we've all had the experience where you see a movie trailer and you think, oh my God, that looks amazing. I cannot wait to see this film. And then also on the flip side, you watch a trailer from time to time and you can't stop laughing because the movie just looks terrible. And you think, oh my God, I would never go and see that film. So that's essentially what you've got to think of your resume or your CV as. It is the trailer for you. No employer is going to get to see you until you've gotten past them with your CV. So it's super important that you get it right. It's the first thing they're going to see. Okay. These are the mistakes that we see all of the time before you even start doing the CV. The first thing we see would be misspellings and bad grammar. Predominantly, the biggest misspellings we see are not words spelled incorrectly, because then, of course, you'll get the little squiggle underneath from Microsoft Word or whoever you're writing it, whatever platform you're using to write, will tell you that there's a bad spelling. What we often see is words that are correct words, but in the wrong context. So we would often see chef de partie spelled with a Y, or people looking for a kitchen porter's job, but writing down kitchen potter, or chicken porter comes in quite a lot, or kitten porter we get a lot.
Sorry, Eimhear.
Yeah.
Just want to jump in there just to say that we can't actually see the presentation. Could you bring that up on the? Okay, sorry. So you're sharing your screen, but we just see the actual presentation. It should be in one of the tabs. It's up on my screen. So how do I bring it up on yours? Okay, so maybe stop presenting now for a moment. Okay. And then start presenting again. And when it asks you to what to share, try the whole screen. Okay. Let me see. So you're presenting. Let me see if I can bring it up there. There we go. That's it. Okay. Perfect. Yes? Great. That's it. We can see it. Sorry to interrupt. No problem at all. I'm glad you did. So double check to make sure that your spellings are correct. So because we would be dealing predominantly in Excel recruitment with retail staff and hospitality staff, customer service often is mentioned on CVs, but there is a word in French, often used in English, which is costumier, which is C-O-S-T-U-M-E-R, which we get spelled constantly wrong when people are saying customer service. If you are applying for a CV in English, if you're writing a CV in English, make sure that your computer is not set to an American English, unless you're applying for a position, unless you're writing a CV for the States, because you're going to have maximize with Zs and minimize, and they overuse the letter Z way more than we do. So, so make sure that if you're writing in English, it's going to be in British Isles English, Britain and Ireland English, rather than American English, unless you're applying for a position over there. Okay, so fonts. Make sure that whatever font you're using, that you choose for the CV, is clear, and use the same font for the entire CV. Very regularly we'll get CVs in and there will be 3 or 4 different fonts on it, and it just makes you look like you're a little bit mad if you're constantly changing fonts. Or quite often we see this where people have just updated an old CV and they're writing in a different font now. So half the CV is in one and half is in the other. It's very disconcerting looking. People who don't care about it won't notice it, but people who care will notice it immediately. We have had CVs written in Comic Sans and Lucida handwriting and French script, and they're definitely not something that you should be putting a CV in. Now, a lot of CVs come in a font called Times New Roman. There's nothing necessarily wrong with Times New Roman, but what it does is, originally when Microsoft Package became available in probably the 90s, I would imagine, there were very few font options. And the most professional looking one was Times New Roman. So every single CV written in the 90s was written in this particular font. Now there's loads of more choices. So what it does is, if your CV is written in Times New Roman, it makes you look like you wrote your CV in 1994 and you haven't updated it since then. So it's just a super old-fashioned looking one. Avoid it. Really good fonts to use would be very clear, easy to read, well laid out. Things like Calibri and Verdana are excellent. Arial is a good one as well. It is very important to make sure that wherever you are applying for the job, that you make sure that you find out what's expected in that particular country. Some countries, all CVs must be 1 page and 1 page only and never anymore. With other countries, it's 2 pages. In Ireland, 2 pages is the expected length of a CV. Other countries, there isn't really an expected length. You can go as long as you like. So it is definitely important to find out where your locale is, what the expectation is on CVs. We would have a lot of people moving currently in the last couple of years from South America to Ireland, and their CVs are all 1 page and 1 page only.
but they're not giving enough information to the Irish market, so they're quite often discounted. Make sure that the dates on your CV are correct. Very, very important. And if you have if you've worked overlapping jobs, so you may say you work in a bank but you bartended on a Friday and a Saturday night for 6 months while you were about to do your big trip around the world or whatever. Sometimes employers are not necessarily outside the box thinkers, and they will go, how could they have worked in a bar and in a bank at the same time? That's obviously wrong. They're idiots, and they won't even bring you in. So if you have done 2 part-time jobs simultaneously, or a full-time and then the odd shift in a nightclub or whatever, make sure you put part-time in brackets after those dates. Okay. As I said earlier, these particular slides are tailored to what is required on an Irish CV. So make sure that you have a look at what's expected where you're applying. So on Irish CVs, for sure, you don't need to put down your age. Your date of birth is not required. Nobody cares about your religion. Whether you're married or not, or whether you have children or not, that's not important at all. Whether you're a smoker or a non-smoker, not important. Some countries will require that, not necessarily the smoker thing, but for sure, I can tell a CV coming in from Zimbabwe, South Africa, Nigeria, anywhere in Upper West Africa always has all of this information on it, but it's certainly not required here in Ireland. So again, tailor your CV. So what you do need? 4 most important things at the very top. Your name, your contact details are very important. Name, address, email, and phone number. Some people are a little concerned about putting their exact postal address. You don't necessarily have to do that. You can just put the locality of the part of the city where you're living. So you could say, in the case of Dublin, you could say Drimna, Dublin 12, or Ballybock, Dublin 3. You don't necessarily have to put down your street address. It's not required, but again, double check where you are. I cannot state this strongly enough. Make sure your email address and your phone number are correct. Twice today, I made 2 phone calls from CVs, dialed in the phone number, and it was boop, boop, boop. This number is not in service. And I thought, I must have made a mistake. And I dialed it again, double checked. And again, the person had put down the wrong phone number on their CV. And on another CV, there was a digit missing. What that says to me is this person is an idiot. And if you have incorrect details, or if your if your email address says, Patrick O'Reilly at hometail.com, they can work out it's probably Hotmail, but it makes Patrick O'Reilly look like he's definitely not a potential staff member for the company. So it's very important to make sure that those details are very, very important. Okay, so name, address, email, phone number. Profile has almost completely taken the place of the cover letter. Now, again, where you are, cover letters may still be required, so double check that. So the cover letter used to be, a CV used to be very, very just informational. This is my name, this is where I worked, and this is the education that I have, and these are my hobbies. That was it. And then you wrote a cover letter with it to say how fabulous you are and how hardworking and what a great timekeeper and, enthusiastic and all of those things. The cover letter is pretty much gone now. And that is where the profile has taken up its place. So that's where you put in what languages you speak, what qualifications you have. And this is where you tailor the CV to whatever job you're applying for. You should tailor your CV. So if you have a background in some retail, some hospitality, and you've worked a little bit in kitchens and front of house, or you've worked in offices a bit, and you could tailor your CV to highlight different aspects of your background, depending on the job that you're applying for. So it's always good to mention, especially languages you speak, your availability. So if you're studying and you're looking for a part-time job, put that in the profile at the top. Now, the second and the third sections are interchangeable. And the reason for that is If you're applying for a job where your work experience is relevant, your work experience would come next. If you're applying for a position where your education is relevant, then the education will come second. So let's say you're studying Greek and Roman civilization in university and you are applying for a position as an intern in the National Museum of Ireland. Then of course your education is wildly important because you're studying Greek and Roman civilization. If you're applying for a job as a bartender in a nightclub and you're studying Greek and Roman civilization, but you have experience from working in a pub as a teenager before you went to college, your Greek and Roman civilization degree is of no bearing whatsoever on whether you can pull pints or not. That's not important. So in that case, the work experience would go second. Okay. Generally, the way the work experience is laid out is the most important thing is the job you did. The second most important thing is where you did the job. And the third is the dates where you did it. So it would be, in my case, bar manager, the Irish Film Institute, Cafe Bar, and then the dates, the years that I worked there. It is always a very good idea to put a web link to the website of the places that you worked as well. Because, I mean, if I was applying for a job, if I was moving to New Zealand or Canada, chances are nobody knows anything about the Irish Film Institute Cafe Bar. They don't know the size of it. They don't know how many staff we would have had. They know very little about it. So a link to a website is a very good idea, especially if it's a small company or a standalone place. So the job title would be first, the place where you worked with a web link, and then the dates you worked. It's super important to be consistent throughout your CV. So if it would be, so if you're writing, the dates are, say, September 2015 to January 2020, and you write Sept to Jan on one job. If your previous job was October 2010 to August 2015, don't write October and August for one job and then Sept and Jan for another job. Just be consistent. If you're going to use contractions and use Jan and Oct, that's fine. Use them throughout the whole CV. If you're going to write 2007, make sure you're using all 4 digits of the dates throughout the entire CV. Don't put 07 to 012 on one job and then put 2012 to 2017 on the next job. People notice a lack of consistency. If you're going to bold your job title for every job, do it for every job. Don't do it for some. If you're going to underline where you have work experience or education, make sure you underline it all throughout. Be consistent. There are pedantic people out there who will notice grammatical errors, they'll notice inconsistencies, and it drives them mad. It's like somebody scratching on the inside of their brain. The people who don't notice won't care, so it doesn't matter. Okay, education, again, you don't have to go back to primary school. So you can do, your secondary education and third level education and any training courses that you've done that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. Okay, and then anything else would be potential awards that you got if you were involved in, sports, if you represented your country, if you do hobbies. Do remember, though, to think about the employer. Socializing is not a hobby. If you put down socializing as a hobby, that tells your manager that you're going to be hungover at least one day a week going to work. So socializing isn't a hobby. Don't lie on your hobbies either. You'll get caught. So if you say you play golf because you Googled or Facebooked the manager who's going to be interviewing you and discovered that he's really into golf, and you put down golf on your CV, then he's going to start asking you all sorts of golf-based questions. That's madness. What else? Do you play a musical instrument? All of that kind of stuff. That would be your anything else, hobbies and interests and stuff like that. But again, don't lie. Tailoring, I've kind of covered that already. So highlight the most relevant experience that you can in the profile. Mention the job that you're applying for in the profile. You should be tailoring your CV pretty much to every job you're applying for, depending on the level. if you're a young student and you've just moved to Toronto and you're looking for a bartending job, you're just going to be carpet bombing every single pub, bar and restaurant in Toronto with your CV. That's fine. But if you're looking for a very specific job, look for the important words in the job ad and tailor your CV based on those job ads. Okay? Ooh. Right, let's say your CV is amazing, your trailer's fabulous, and they call you in for an interview. Yay! Okay, so the interview, again, it's almost like the second trailer for you getting the job. There's a lot of things that you have to do before you go in for the interview. The most important thing that you need to do is reread your CV. You might have written your CV 3 months ago and you've been applying and applying and applying and applying, and suddenly somebody goes, or you get a phone call to say, hi, this is Matt O'Reilly from whatever the name of the company is. We'd love to meet you. Would you like to come in for a chat on Tuesday afternoon? Great, lovely, you're thrilled with yourself. Have a look through your own CV again, because they're going to be asking you questions based on the CV. So you're going to need to be able to answer those questions. So if they say things like, well, how long did you work for this company? And you go, oh, well, hang on, let me think. Well, I started just before my sister got married in October. That's no good. You need to know this information. Okay? Never in an interview situation speak badly of a previous employer. That's a very, very bad sign. Never divulge any private information about another a company that you've worked for. Even if you're asked directly, you know, what was it that you didn't like about the company? You can be general, but it's not a good idea, because what it makes people think is, well, if they're speaking badly of their previous company, if they work for us and they leave us and they're divulging private information about them, they're going to do it about us. So that's a big red flag if you go into interviews. Don't spend half the interview saying what a terrible company your previous job was to work for. Okay, Google the company. Very important. Go onto their LinkedIn page. If you know the name of the person interviewing you, check out their LinkedIn page. Check out anything about the company, because one of the biggest questions is going to be, why do you want to work for us? So if you have been saying, you know, I mean, I'll give you a good example from the bar industry. There's a pub in Dublin called the Brazen Head, which is the oldest pub in Ireland, and they're continuously serving since 1192. So if somebody just randomly sends loads of CVs throughout Dublin, and then they get a phone call from the manager of the Brazen Head to come in, the first question they're going to be asked is, what do you know about us? And if you don't know that it's the oldest pub in Ireland, you're definitely not getting that job, for sure. So you should have a really good knowledge of the place you're working, or the place that you want to work and that you're interviewing for. It's really, really important. Ask about dress code. Now, this is because I would be tailoring this towards retail and hospitality people. Quite often I would say, you know, what you're wearing right now and what's in fashion right now is not what you wear to a job interview. Now, if you're going for a job interview for a more formal position, you're going to be wearing a suit, you're going to be dressed in very formal attire. But we would be having, you know, bartender interviews and waiters and retail situations. So I would always say, bear in mind that the person who's interviewing you is probably 10 years older than you. And they are going to be, have a very different idea for, you know, what you should wear to a job interview. So, you know, no matter how fashionable skinny jeans is and a shown ankle are currently right now, don't be wearing your sprayed on trousers to an interview. If there is a dress code, again, don't be casual at all. We've had people turn up for interviews in tracksuits, even though we've said to them, you know, wear a shirt and a slacks, shirt and trousers and polished shoes. But, you know, sometimes people go, but that's my best tracksuit. You can't win. You know, professionally as well, in the retail and hospitality industry, quite often you'll be asked to do a trial. It depends again on where you're living and the country and the job you're applying for. A trial is usually 2 or 3 hours and they will tell you what to wear. Make sure things like your nails are clean. If you're a female and you're going to wear nail varnish, don't make it too dramatic. Elegant colors, clean nails. Practice your handshake. I know that sounds stupid, but practice your handshake with the friend. There is nothing worse than a wishy-washy kind of wet fish handshake. It's not nice. You also don't want to crush the hands off the person who's interviewing you. That's a stupid thing to do. Make eye contact, smile. Even if you're feeling nervous going into an interview, always smile. And I cannot reiterate this strongly enough. Do not smoke just before an interview. I know people think it makes them feel calmer and calms their nerves. Do not do it. If the person who is interviewing you is a non-smoker, you will not get the job. Okay, now I don't know what the discrimination laws are like in the countries where you're based, but for sure in Ireland, there's no discrimination laws against not employing smokers, and I have done it myself on many an occasion. So just don't smoke before you go in if you are a smoker. Okay, so this is, I think, my last slide. Yes. These are the kind of questions that you get asked in interviews. It's really, really important that you have answers to these questions. Tell me about yourself. That's an easy one, but don't spend too long. They don't really want to know that much about you. They want to know a little bit, but not a huge amount. If you have worked in lots of jobs for short periods of time, you're going to have a very good reason for why those jobs did not last for very long. Because people don't want to invest in you, in your training, getting you up, getting you working, getting you up to speed in a job if you're going to last 6 months or 8 months. We would often have staff coming in from Croatia have that problem on their CV because a lot of Croatian jobs are very seasonal, because in the summertime, all along the Dalmatian coast is super, super busy. But then in the winter, a lot of the restaurants, bars and hotels will actually close. So we would have a situation where a lot of chefs would do the summer in a hotel in Croatia and then the winter on a cruise ship, and then back to the summer in Croatia and back to a cruise ship. So in 10 years, they've had 20 jobs. Now we have to explain that on a CV going out to a client to say, this guy has been, or this girl has been consistently working for the last 10 years, but because they were working in Croatia, this is how it is. So it is very important that you have a good reasons. Well, I was looking for training. I was traveling the world. Whatever the reasons are, come up with the very good reasons why you've spent very short lengths of time in various jobs if you've moved from job to job. Strengths and weaknesses. This is always a bit of a trick question, because everyone wants to talk about their strengths, and then people start trying to turn a strength into a weakness, and they say things like, well, could working too hard be a weakness? That's don't say that. It's one of the things that people try all the time. Come up with something that, for instance, for me, I have to work really, really hard at being organized. I'm not fantastically organized from the point of view of, I kind of keep a lot of stuff. So I personally I've always had to say in interviews, I focus really hard on being organized because I know I'm not very, very good at it. But it's one of the things that I know I'm not good at. So at least I'm aware of it and I work hard at it. So they're one of the things. Why should we hire you? Well, have an answer to that question. You know why you should work with this company or why they should want you working for them. This is not just them interviewing you. This is you interviewing them as well. So that's an important thing as well. Don't want to come across too desperate. So why you want this job and why they should hire you are important questions to know the answer to, but sell yourself. This is essentially, you're giving them a sales pitch for you. Okay? So biggest achievement in your career is an often asked question. So have a good think, if in case it comes up, go back and think about what did you do that made the difference to a company? Was it a particularly big sales thing, or was it that you changed a process, or you came up with a better way of doing the stock take, or whatever it is? Just have a good think about these kind of questions that might be asked. Do you prefer working alone or in a team? The answer to that is choose one, but then say that you're also equally fabulous at the other one, because that's the answer they expect. Okay. Dream job. That doesn't get often asked, but occasionally. So it's worthwhile having an idea in your head, potentially, if it might be asked. And then, why did you leave your last job? Well, only you know that. But again, in this situation, do not diss a previous employer. You know, if it's a situation that you are moving countries, or you felt that there was no possibility for promotion within the company that you were in, you know, you'd gotten to as high as you were going to get, and the next job was your boss's job and they were not going to be retiring for the next 25 years. You know, there's loads of different ways that you can answer that job. Okay. How are we doing?
That's great, Eimhear. Thanks a mil for that.
No problem.
You've given us some really good no-nonsense tips that'll help us get our CVs noticed, and definitely some shoes in the door there. I think we've actually received a few questions as well from viewers. So if you're ready, let's start with this one. It's I have experience in regular employment and self-employment. Which of these should I highlight first on my CV?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. Yeah, that's being both self-employed, being self-employed it's kind of almost a double-edged sword. People like the idea of employees, but then some people love the kind of the go-getterness of people who have been self-employed, but then they're also worried that they're going to start telling you how to do things, or they're going to yearn for being self-employed and leaving again. So my advice would be, if you were applying for a job where you're going to be an employee, highlight the employee part, but definitely mention that all the strengths that you have from being self-employed, you know, self-resilience and get up and go, and, you know, hardworking and all of the kind of stuff, because being self-employed is tough. There's no holidays, there's no days off. You can't just turn off your computer at 6 o'clock and say, goodbye, I'm out of here. That's not how it works, unfortunately, because I've been self-employed myself, and you're constantly working or stressing out about, and you're worried about taking a holiday, because as soon as you book the holiday, then a client will ring and say, oh, could you do such and such for me? And it's in your holiday dates. So it's a tough one. But if you're going for a job as an employee, highlight the employee aspect of your past, but then definitely, you know, mention all the fabulous things that you get from being self-employed too.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And next one is, should I bring a copy of my CV into the interview?
Yes, absolutely. You may not be asked for it, but bring it anyway. That was one of the things that I used to do. Even though I had a copy in front of me, I would always say, I would send out an email to potential staff, and I would say, you know, not so much in Excel, but when I was running bars, I would say, meet me at 4 o'clock. These are the directions. And this will be a trial, so wear black trousers, black shoes, black shirt, as well as an interview, and please bring a copy of your CV. And it was almost to see, could they follow instructions? The simplest instructions, like wear these 3 items of clothing, be on time, and bring a copy of your CV. And sometimes they get back and say, oh, actually, do you know what? I don't have access to a printer, in which case then I go, that's fine, because it meant to me that they'd actually read the email and they understood what I was asking for. But yeah, it's a good idea, because sometimes people go, oh gosh, I printed it out here for it. It makes you look very fabulous if you can go, oh no, don't, I have one here for you, you know. So bringing one in, it's never a bad idea. Never a bad idea.
Okay, great. I've got another question here, which I'm just going to try and read slowly, make sense of it. I moved between 2 homes, obviously when government support this, due to family. Would it be okay to add areas I live between to maximize my exposure, that I'm flexible to work in different locations?
That's an interesting one. I would depend on how far the locations were from each other. I would err on the side of doing 2 separate CVs with 2 separate addresses and applying into the positions in the different areas with the CVs that were tailored for that particular area. But if it's a difference of one side of the city and the other side of the city, then it doesn't really matter. But if you're talking about Dublin and Cork, which are 3 hours away from each other, then that'll be confusing for an employer to see a Dublin address. And why are you applying for a job in Cork? Do you live in Cork? We would often get that with students who have their home address. So they have a Waterford address, but they're applying for a job in Dublin. And then I would look down their CV and I'd say, oh, they're studying in UCD, but they don't put their Dublin address on the CV. So I would ring them and say, look, I might not have scrolled down very far to see that you're actually studying in Dublin. I'd have seen the Waterford address and gone delete. So change that, you know, because an employer is never going to be posting anything to you. Not now. It's all email. So your postal address is really not that important other than to see the area that you live in. So that would be my advice, either 2 totally separate CVs with the addresses different, or if they're not too far from each other. But you could mention, you know, I live in both areas due to, you know, whatever reason, family situation. Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah, that makes sense. Next one I have is what's the best way? No, actually, here's one. When an employer asks me to describe myself, how far should I go?
A minute.
Oh,
that's it. You've got 45 to 60 seconds to describe yourself, really. And that's essentially, it's the profile, but verbally. So, you know, it's never a bad idea to say to the employer, well, do you mean kind of my personality, or do you mean my work background? It's not a bad idea to ask questions. Have a couple of questions for the employer as well. So, I mean, if you were to, you know, if you were to ask me that question, I mean, I'm extrovert, I'm very bubbly personality. I'm a big sort of, I'm like the mammy of the office here. I fix stuff for everybody. I'm the one they come to get, you know, the buttons sewn back on their trousers and things like that. But I can be a little bit bossy too, which made me a good bar manager. But I've an excellent attention to detail, you know. So they would be kind of just highlight yourself. But really, you're talking about 45 seconds to a minute. Don't wander and start talking about your wonderful golf game and stuff like that.
Yeah, just stick to the positive attributes. Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay. I've got one last question here now. That is the photograph. Should I have a photograph on my CV or not?
Right. Okay. So that is 100% dependent on where you are writing this CV for. So I would Google it. So for instance, in the United States, every CV has a photograph on it. I've never seen an American CV without one. Eastern Europe, also photograph. Ireland, it's not expected. Ireland and the UK, I mean, it's not important. If your photograph is professionally taken and you look amazing and you're super gorgeous, then of course there's no problem. Put a photograph on it. It doesn't make any difference. But you want a really good photograph of yourself. You want a nice smiley photograph. You don't want a photograph that you took at a wedding at 4 a.m. when you were drunk and you're clipping somebody's arm out of the top of the photograph. I mean, no. So it depends. I mean, I can look at an Eastern European CV and I know immediately that it's from Eastern Europe because they always have photographs of them, always. And never smiling, very serious Eastern European photographs. Sometimes a smile, but not often. And American ones are always lots of smiling and loads of teeth. But it's expected in Ireland, but it is expected in other countries. So have a look. Just Google, should I put a photograph on a CV in Lithuania? And it'll tell you the answer. So it'll vary very much so. And it's the same way that if you're writing a CV, you need to know the information you need to put on it. I mean, there's so much information on a CV that's coming from West Africa, for sure. If anyone is right, if we have Nigerian staff applying for jobs here, I'm going to know their name, their address, if they're married, if they've children, what religion they are, date of birth. Like there's so much more. Nobody cares about what your religion is, but clearly in Nigeria, it's an important thing to have on a CV because it's on every single one. So it's expected. But over here, I don't care. Not important. Can you do the job and where do you live? They're the most important ones that most people will think about.
Okay, very good. I've got one other question. What's the best question to ask an employer? Or what are the best questions?
Yeah, one of the best questions to ask is what would be the promotion from within the company of the senior management that they have. How many people would have come from within the company and were nurtured through the company and made their way up to the top, and how many people were parachuted in from other companies. That shows that you're interested in furthering yourself and promotion within the company, and you're interested in also asking about training within the company, in-house training, because that shows that you're, again, interested in giving back to the company if they're staying with the company in order to learn more and be more productive and more useful. So they're always really good questions to ask about, you know, and you can kind of nearly make it almost a joke by saying, well, like, I'm obviously not going to want to take over the company in the next few weeks, but, you know, you can use your personality from that point of view to say things like, you know, I love the idea of, you know, staying with the company and working my way up. And from a promotional point of view, how many of your senior managers came in at entry level?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a good question to ask.
Okay. Another one. How early should you arrive for an interview? I've been told that 15 minutes is fine.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're being super careful, and I don't really know where this building is and I want to find it, and you give yourself tons of time and you arrive 45 minutes beforehand, you know where the building is, go off and get yourself a cup of tea and then come back 15 minutes beforehand. Don't go in and say, oh, I know I'm nearly an hour early for the interview, because that puts pressure on the manager to think, oh my God, I'm going to have somebody sitting downstairs for 45 minutes. So 15 minutes is plenty. But but if you're not 100% sure where the place is, you go, you find it. You do not want to be running around somewhere like, say, the Grand Canal Dock or the IFSC, where there's loads and loads of companies, and you're running around like a lunatic going, oh my God, where is this place? And you're arriving in still with 5 minutes to go, but you're stressed out. Go, make sure you know exactly where you're supposed to be going, that it is the right building, it is the right company, and then off you go. Cup of tea, relax, don't smoke. Don't smoke. Oh my God. Smokers appear to think that they're entitled to more breaks than non-smokers. So managers don't like them. They don't like them because it's kind of like, you know, you get a 45-minute lunch break, but then you're also think, I'm just going to go for a quick smoke. I refused to employ smokers when I was a bar manager.
Oh, really? Okay. So if ever needed another reason to kick the habit.
Yeah, absolutely. No, wouldn't employ them. I had a few staff when I started now that were already there. So, but they used to keep whittling 5 minutes off their lunch break every time they go for a smoke break. Okay. Smokers, sorry. So yeah, no, definitely don't smoke. Oh my God.
Okay.
I mean, interviewing you smokes, it doesn't matter. But if the person who interviews you is a non-smoker, they're going to know immediately. So don't do it.
And it paints a picture, I suppose. Yeah. Yeah,
I do understand that people who smoke, it kind of calms them down a little bit. But the last thing you want to do just before an interview is kind of go, okay, in we go. It's never a good idea. Gum as well. Don't eat crisps or chips before you go in. You know, don't eat anything smelly. I would also advise not eating highly garlicked foods the night before. Just be on the case, because you can stress out. Sometimes people get very nervous going into interviews, and if you're sweating a little bit, that can the smell of garlic can come out in your sweat.
Oh, okay, yeah. Again, another good reason. Okay, I think I have one last question here, Eimhear. I'll just again read this one slowly. I left a role due to it being expensive to travel, and it was commission-based role only. Money wasn't guaranteed. When an employer asks what was my reason for leaving, what should I say? So you've got a tricky reason for having left a previous role.
Yeah, I would definitely go with the commute was becoming untenable. I was traveling 3.5 hours every single day, and I just found it soul destroying. And it's absolutely the one thing that people, introverts are loving about the pandemic is the fact that they don't have to be dealing with other humans and traveling all the time. I mean, my husband is quite an introvert, and he jokingly said we should light a candle for all the extroverts who now have to work at home. So it's just like, I'm like that. Well, we had to work at home for 12 weeks here, and we rotate working at home. So there's only a few of us in the office at any one time. But I'm just like, oh my God, I have to work from home. Ugh. But I can also understand commuting is incredibly soul destroying. If you're, stuck in a car for an hour and a half each way, or you're on a Lewis, on a bus or a train every day. So the best way would be, it became an untenable commute. I wouldn't complain about money. That's never a good one to go with, because what that makes you seem like is that you're just only interested in the money. Now, and I've said this, the little dance, the little game that we play when we go into interviews, if we were to be super honest in an interview and they said, why do you want this job? Everyone would say, well, I have rent to pay, food to buy, but we don't say that. They know that's why you want the job. Nobody works for free. You work because you need to earn money because you got to pay for stuff. And they want you so that they can earn money so that they can pay for stuff. Ta-da! This is not a difficult concept, but we wouldn't say that in an interview. You're not going to get the job. But the commute is that I would definitely go with the commute. One of the girls who worked with us, she works from home all the time now because she was traveling an hour and a half each way every day. Like, she was coming in from Ballymore Eustace into the city centre, which is mental track. So, for those of you,
it's certainly changed. Yeah.
Ballymore Eustace is very far away from Dublin.
Yeah. I don't even know where it is. Anyway.
Blessington.
All right. Oh, yeah. Okay. I've that's all the questions I've got in. Hang on. One last one has just come in, if you don't mind. Please highlight the main downfalls of online interviews and the difference between online and in-person interviews, which is very relevant, obviously, for today's.
Yeah, they're tough because, well, first of all, you have the situation where you're never quite making eye contact because you're looking at the person on the screen as opposed to the camera. So it's quite difficult to remember to look at the camera while you're chatting to them because you're looking at them. You don't have the handshake situation. Now, you also don't have the smoker's breath situation, so the swings and roundabouts. Yeah, I mean, I would practice, if you're going to be doing interviews, practice looking at the camera while you're doing the interview. Good lighting, but make sure the computer is set up with the window behind the computer itself. So you have natural light preferably, or decent light coming in. You don't want to be in shadow or have light behind you. Find somewhere quiet and make sure that everyone else in the house knows that you're doing an interview, so they don't come wandering in or start shouting up the stairs, do you want a cup of tea or any of that kind of thing while you don't want, make sure your phone is on silent, or if you have a landline, take it off the hook so the phone can't ring while you're doing the interview. So find somewhere quiet, do all this stuff that you've done, do the research, but like, there's certain things like the handshake, body language, you really don't have that going for you. So you have to make up for it. So still, doing the smiling, double check your teeth beforehand, make sure that you have no spinach in them or lipstick on them. Try and get into the habit of looking at the camera. Practice an interview with a friend on Zoom, it's never a bad idea, or Microsoft Teams or whatever the various platforms are. It's a good idea to grab a friend and say, look, I've got an important interview tomorrow. I just want to practice chatting professionally over the Zoom to see how I come across. And they'll be able to give you pointers. Find a good friend who'll be honest with you. You don't want someone to go, no, you look fabulous. Someone who'll be able to say, stop waving your hands around the whole time. Whatever. That would be my advice anyway.
Excellent. Okay, Eimhear. Well, I think that pretty much wraps that up. That's sound advice and no nonsense as well, and really appreciate it. So I hope everybody else has enjoyed everything we've discussed today as well. So I'd like to end the session now by saying thank you for logging on and participating, and we really do appreciate your support. Thanks also to our MC2 production team for their hard work in bringing the live stream. And finally, I'd like to thank you again, Eimhear, for your invaluable insight this evening. It's been great talking with you. Thanks a million.
You're very welcome.
Bye. Bye.